Hey, Richard Miller here again with Facts for Working People. And I don't know if people that read the blog, Facts for Working People, notice, but I've not been writing as much lately. I was sort of in a writing funk. And if you've ever got stories of your workplace or anything you want to send us, we'll normally use them. And we can be discreet if there's an issue, you know. But the reason I'm on here right now is I wanted to write something about Trump's statement that America is not racist, it's never been racist, and so forth. And he has a number of black supporters in that, those that have benefited from the civil rights movement, the black working class and youth that were involved in the black revolt of the 60s, 50s and 60s, and attained middle class, upper middle class, and even with a few bourgeois status in this country. I think there's about 6 billionaires that are black billionaires in this country. But Trump, so this is what Trump says, that it's not racist and it's never been racist. And I was going to write something about that, but it's really the fact that somebody can make a statement like that, and that there are workers that actually support it or will agree with him on that. And part of me, I feel, is people are just it's a complicated thing why this lunatic and sexual deviant racist got elected. Some of it is just an FU vote, I feel. Some of it is desperation. Anybody's better than the continued betrayals and letdowns of the two Wall Street parties, the lies and everything else, and under the misguided notion that he doesn't need their money and that he's going to drain the swamp, all of these complicated things. And it's not all racist either. I mean, you know, that Macomb County, Michigan, high percentage of white workers in it voted for him. They twice voted for Obama. Voted for Obama against the Mormon guy. That's another lunatic religion. 6,000 years old the earth is. That's their view of the world. So it's a lot more complicated. And what I wanted to say was, I know I've got co-workers I know that support Trump. And I've worked in the public sector. I worked for public utility. I had a good income. I've got a good retirement. I'm no formal university education or anything. Just went to Catholic schools, which I think was a bit of an advantage in some ways. But how people that have jobs like I had, that changed my life as a working class person, can support this individual and what he stands for, is just the height of hypocrisy. Of course, I'm not a Democrat. I've never voted for the Democratic Party. I've always campaigned and fought for an independent party of the working class. In my union, I was instrumental in many ways in getting my union for a number of years not to support any Democrat or endorse any Democrat. And with the public utility, we always had, on the board of 7, we always had a Liberal on there that would vote our way on certain issues. That was the end of it. It'd be a 6-1 minority vote. And yes, we got a person on the board. Without that person, we'd have nothing. And of course, nothing ever came. They never campaigned for us in our strike. And during that period of the strike, we had an environmentalist on the board. Never really, but they'll vote your way here and there. We'll give them money, give them an endorsement. The unions endorse them. The Central Labour Council, which is the county arm of the AFL-CIO, where they come to for an endorsement, they would endorse them, and so forth. But what I want to say to people, working class people that do that have supported this individual, because there is a bit of a difference with this man. It's clear he's given the right wing, the white nationalists, the Nazis. He's celebrated this guy, defended this guy whose mother drove him across state lines, and he shot 2 peaceful protesters, murdered them. He's defended this guy. Well, he's calling now for the ones that shot the cop, whoever shot those 2 cops, for the death penalty for him, like he did for the Central Part 5, and then it turns out they were innocent. They did a lot of time in prison. He's never taken that back. He's got a big mouth, this guy. And of course, I want to make it clear, I wouldn't advocate in going around shooting cops, but I can certainly understand it. If I were black, I'd want to shoot some cops. I would think to myself, oh, well, I'm going to take out, you're going to get people that are going to say, nothing's going to change, we're all dead anyway, I'm going to take a couple of them out. And I'm totally opposed to that. It's a form of individual terrorism. What will stop this is power, organised working class power, a united working class opposed to racism, sexism, and all forms of discrimination and so forth. That's the way to change this system and to put a stop to this nonsense. And so anyway, but when I think to myself, when you are supporting Trump, you're supporting, when you're working alongside that black worker, in my case, would have been in a ditch, laying pipe, driving truck, doing whatever we do, but whether you're in white collar or a blue collar or whatever, when you're working alongside that black person, that person of color, and any person of color, but particularly them in this country, then you are telling them that your complaints, your concerns about racism, and generally it's not simply about calling a name. It's about housing, it's about education, it's about the community that never changes. Just north of here is East Oakland, and that whole community there, that has never changed. A minute detail here and there. When I lived in part of East Oakland in the 90s with that boom, some of the kids on the corner got jobs. But that community, capitalism will never develop these communities, the poverty of West Virginia for whites and the poverty and others, and the poverty of the urban areas for black people. It will never be able to solve the crisis, the genocidal crisis that native people have faced. I could give some statistics about the conditions on the reservations and so forth. So the capitalism won't solve that. And when you're supporting Trump, what's caused the crisis in the Trump's comments about racism, what's caused the crisis in these communities, all poverty, what's caused the violence, the suicides in this country, the helplessness, the lack of health care, the opportunity that's gone, the constant debt, the student debt that's carried on to people's parents, that's a social problem. But I wanted to read a couple of things, just a little bit about U.S. history. This was from Alexander Stevens. He was the VP of the Confederacy. He said, "The new Constitution has put to rest forever all the agitating questions relating to our peculiar institution. African slavery as it exists among us, the proper status of the Negro in our form of civilization." He goes on to say, he talks about the Civil War, and then he says, "The prevailing ideas entertained by him," talking about Jefferson, and most of the leading statements at the time of the formation of the old Constitution were that the enslavement of the African was in violation of the laws of nature, that it was wrong in principle, socially, morally, and politically. These ideas, however, were fundamentally wrong. They rested upon the assumption of the equality of the races. This was an error. Our new government is founded on exactly the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. Those militias, those people that were stopping people in cars up in Oregon the other day because they thought they might have been looters, all of these prayer, patriot, right-wing Christian groups, that's their philosophy right there. They've never left that behind, and they've been allowed to keep it after the Civil War. And of course, after the great compromise of 1877, when the troops were pulled out of the South, that set in Jim Crow, and you had another 100 years of violence and brutality against them. Lincoln, of course, said, "I have no purpose," in his inaugural address, "I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no legal right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so." You talk about heroes and statues. John Brown is one of the heroes of American history. And Of course, in the Emancipation Proclamation, excluded from its purview were 450 slaves in Delaware, Kentucky and Missouri, and 275,000 in Union-occupied Tennessee. And just a couple of other comments here, just from history. This was from, I forget which one it was, one of the officials of the Freedmen's Bureau that existed in the South when the troops were occupying the South after the Civil War, during Reconstruction. He says, white public opinion could, quote, the quote is, white public opinion could not, quote, conceive of the Negro having any rights at all. Men who are honourable in their dealings with their white neighbours will cheat a Negro without feeling a twinge of their honour. To kill a Negro they do not deem murder. To debauch a Negro woman they do not think fornication. To take property away from a Negro they do not deem robbery. They still have the ingrained feeling that the black people at large belong to the whites at large. And of course you have Andrew Johnson. He says, blacks possessed, quote, less capacity for government than any other race of people. No independent government of any form has ever been successful in their hands. On the contrary, wherever they have been left to their own devices, they have shown a constant tendency to relapse into barbarism. That's Andrew Johnson in his 1867 annual message to the Congress. Of course, he continued, white men alone must manage the South, he said. And I've got tons of them. There's a great book by Eric, I think it's Eric Foner, about Reconstruction, and another book I read, which is really worth reading, by a guy named Shug. It's about class struggle in Louisiana, and in one of those two, I can't remember which one it was in, it mentioned that in 1866, 1,000 white men were indicted for killing a black person. Not one was convicted. I think it was Foner's Reconstruction, and in that, I think it was Foner in his Reconstruction, and he mentioned a couple of cases. What reason the black person was shot? The one that stuck out in my mind was he didn't tip his hat to a white man. That's why the white guy shot him, and of course that's okay. You can do that. That's the history of this country. Everybody really knows it. For anybody to say that this is not a racist country, it's not a racist country. It's never been a racist country. It was built on racism. It's a colonial settler state. Same as the reason the British were in East Africa. You know, they had settlers there and so forth. Settlers are always have a certain mentality because they're generally on somebody else's property and they want to stay there, and they drive the original owner off. That's what it is. So nobody's saying that white people or Europeans or anybody doesn't belong here. I believe Protestants belong in Northern Ireland. I believe white South Africans belong there. They don't belong. They've been there for hundreds of years. You can't change that situation by removing everybody. But you have to change the way society is structured and how it's organized. And so basically what I want to say is thank you in many ways to Trump for flushing out who we see on the streets. Let's get it out into the open. A lot of our black guys used to say to me, well, because they came from the South, they came up to California from the South, and they would say to me, you know, at least we knew where we stood down there. I don't think California's so non-racist or something, you know. And what Trump's done is he's flushed them out. He's given them license. He's brought them out from under their ups. And let's put it on the table. Let's see them for what they are and let's deal with them. And the thing is I want to say, because I think they don't think about it. But if you're a white guy in my workplace or any workplace and you work alongside black people, and you never mind about the grabbing pussy stuff. That in itself is bad enough as well. But if you work alongside a person of color, that's what, and you support Trump, that's what you're supporting. You're telling that black guy there that's working alongside you that your complaints are bogus. You have no issues. You're phony. You're making excuses. You're just lazy or whatever. That's what you should say. Your position is when you vote for Trump. It's all silent. We shouldn't have it silent. We shouldn't have it silent. Let's take sides here. Let's get on this. Let's get into the camps that we belong, and let's be open about this. So in some ways, Trump's done us all a favour for that. But anyway, this was just something I wanted to say to get something on my YouTube channel. I don't know much how to get stuff out further. I got 26 views on one piece that I when I spoke about Ilhan Omar. I guess every Muslim in the Middle East loved me there for a minute. But anyway, it's Richard, Facts for Working People. Our blog is Facts for Working People. Its URL is weknowwhatsup.blogspot.com. Thanks a lot.